Hey there, and welcome to another episode of The Finnovator with me, Stuart Belle, business coach and founder of Our Dare Coaching Consulting, where we uncover the real stories behind business stories, breakthroughs, and most importantly, we get to know the people behind them. And then today's episode is another one that you won't want to miss because I'm joined by Scott Aggett. Scott is one of Australia's leading negotiators. He's an entrepreneur. He has had a long and very successful career in real estate. He's also an incredible networker, and as I like to say, is living proof that nice guys don't finish last in business. Scott's journey reads almost like a masterclass of drive, reinvention, and resilience. He started out as a 15-year-old doing work experience at a real estate agent, and after that, fast climbed the ranks to co-own 3 major agencies in Sydney's eastern suburbs. But it's what happened next that makes this episode and this story really, really special. After a hard-earned and a really hard-fought exit and a bit of a personal reset, which was prompted by the loss of his father, and also a desire to shift from a type of success that wasn't fulfilling him to something a little bit more authentic and grounded, Scott traded in the flashy world of high-end eastern suburbs real estate for more barefoot beach time with the family on the Gold Coast and retired at 38. However, unlike a lot of people in this situation, he started again. He saw a gap in the market where others didn't, helping buyers in a different way, and helping them to master the art of negotiation without the smoke and the mirrors that is so common in the real estate industry. And he built and sold the innovative Hello Haus business, and along the way learned some priceless lessons about pricing, about trusting your gut, and also what to do when your entrepreneurial journey doesn't go to plan, which his definitely did not go to plan. And he's not finished. His latest project is already 5x in growth and really redefining again how Australians buy property. Along the way, Scott's going to share stories about losing $45,000 in revenue in a single day to do the right thing by clients, building ironclad networks from the ground up, and he has incredible social network and professional network, and why transparent, values-driven business is what he considers his ultimate advantage. So whether you're looking to work out how to build a life by design, whether you want to negotiate what you're worth, or you just want to find inspiration to bounce back after a setback, this conversation is full of very raw and really practical insights. Scott's story to me proves that success isn't a straight line and that the real flex is building a business and most importantly, a life that fits you. So grab a notebook because you'll want to jot down more than a few tactics and frameworks from this discussion. And also stick around to the end. Scott is going to share some wisdom about business, about negotiation, and about life that you will not hear from other people. And if this conversation sparks something in you, please hit subscribe and leave us a review as it helps incredible stories like Scott's to get discovered by more people just like you. Let's get stuck in. G'day everybody, welcome to today's masterclass. I hope you've had a great week, and wherever you're watching this, whatever time of day, alternatively, I hope the week is good. Today's masterclass is with Scott Aggett of many different places, but most recently scottaggett.com. Scott is a negotiation expert, but to be really frank, describing Scott as a negotiation expert is a bit like describing Lewis and Hamilton as being quite good at pit stops, because what we're going to go through today is a story that kind of has a few different chapters. Scott has a huge background in real estate and probably knows more about real estate, the movements of the markets, than anybody I've spoken to. He obviously started in real estate agencies, owned 2 major agencies in the eastern suburbs, so as you can imagine, really got a flavour for the high end of town. Then came a bit of a lifestyle change. He moved up to the Gold Coast, where after a period of time, I guess you'd call it flipping houses, picking really good ones. In actual fact, there was a time he pointed out a really good property to me, and as he quite well should, jumped in and grabbed it himself. And then decided he had an idea for spotting a gap in the market, which was ultimately the fact that whilst we had buyer's agents and all this sort of stuff going on, he thought there was a real place for someone who could come in once somebody had identified the property and just master the negotiation. I first sat down with Scotty to hear about the idea, and I just thought it was fantastic. So much so that when I came to buy this place, the property, he was the first person I called. And to give you an idea of the quality of what he does, at the time, there was competition in the sales process. In other words, people were willing to literally pay and buy the property immediately. He still manages to acquire, I think it was about a $15,000 discount. He just speaks the language, not only of agents, but of negotiations. So today, the conversation is going to go through a few phases. We're going to talk about how he got into what he does, how he developed these skill sets, the relationship he's built, all the way through founding Hello Haus and where he's at now, which is about founding his next company. One thing you should mention about Scott is he's also an incredible networker. He's created this group of people around him who are really impressive, but also the relationships he's built are very strong. And as I said in the intro that went out, if you've ever heard that mantra that nice guys finish last in business, this is going to blow that out of the water because Scott is one of the most personable, pleasant, lovely to deal with, and just has all his morals in the right place, and yet has been incredibly successful and will continue to be in the future. And if you stick around to the end, we'll tell you more about how what he does may be able to help your clients, or alternatively, if you're looking to get involved in the property market and you want to make sure you get the best possible deal, how you can leverage what he does. That being said, let's get the show on the road. Scott, are you there, man?
I am. How are you, Stewie?
I'm really well, mate. I wanted to keep it good, so I avoided mentioning that you're an Arsenal fan. But to be fair, out of all of the Arsenal fans I know, you're the one that would almost make me enjoy watching Arsenal. So
Well,
take that as it may.
didn't we finish 15 places ahead of you?
Yeah, I think you did, but we won a trophy, so I think that kind of ends that conversation. Mate, how's it going? How's your week been so far?
Really good, really good. Yeah, I'm super pumped working on a new project that you know about. I'm 5 to 6 months in and pre-launch, about 6 to 8 weeks away. So team's growing fast, lots of transactions. There's a whole heap of sort of new energy with that and lots of networking as per usual. So I'm having a good time. The sun's shining, business is good.
I'm glad the sun's shining where you are. It is literally like Noah's Ark here. There was so much rain coming down. It's ridiculous. I can't wait to dive into that piece as well, because I know when you launched Hello Haus, it was such a great idea, and you come out of that and then you just picked up and run again. But I think you shared a post the other day on LinkedIn, it was blurred out, where you shared your pipe drive. I think it's pipe drive. I also checked out
Yeah,
funnel, and I just gave me real insight into how methodical you are about managing things. Also, the way you've brought people on board and grown businesses, it's also been very methodical. And I get a feeling that when we dive into some of what you do from a business perspective, there is a great deal of systemization and method to it. I could be wrong, but yeah.
I hope you can find the answers because for me, it feels like I'm calm above the water and paddling hell underneath and sticky taping all my systems and processes together. No, I only joke. I've got a pretty good idea of how it should all work, but it's always a work in progress.
Okay. Let's start at the beginning, man. Let's start at, first of all, how did you get involved in real estate? How did you get involved in the property game? Is it something you always wanted to do, or is it something that was thrust upon you, so to speak?
I wasn't very good at school, and my passion was always talking to people and connecting with people, but I wasn't great in my studying. And I wasn't very disciplined, and I just really disconnected with school. But I wanted a role in sales, and we did school work experience in Australia back in the day. I'm not sure if the kids still do it now. So I think it was in year 9 or 10, probably year 10. So I would have been about 15. I chose to go and do a sales role for my 2 week work experience. And I actually worked with a family member at Ray White in Bankstown with Peter Matthews, who's
Wow.
actually just been the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales president for the last few years. And Pete, very kindly, he was about 5 years ahead of me at school, and he was out doing his first job. And I worked with him and loved it for 2 weeks. And that was me stuck on that idea of wanting to be a real estate agent and starting out in sales.
And this was, you were 15, is that right?
15.
How old?
15. Yeah.
15. Wow. Okay, cool. And what was it that really, what grabbed you about real estate? What was it that you loved?
I think it was the ability to earn uncapped amounts of money if you were to put the hard yards in and do it right.
Okay.
For me, that was great because at school, I just wasn't performing very well. I just saw this as an avenue where I didn't have capped earnings. I could go and create my own life by design. And yeah, I just felt that it was really exciting because it was just massive opportunity.
Okay. So where'd you go from there? Like, how did you go from Ray White Bankstown? Can we mention the property agencies that you owned back in the day, or should we leave the name out?
No, you can talk about it openly. Yeah.
So it was Belle Property Potts Point.
Belle Property at Potts Point, Belle Property Walsh Bay, Belle Property Surrey Hills.
That was three. Okay, I beg
It
your
was
pardon.
3 franchises. Yeah, I co-founded and set those up as one of the lead sales agents and the founder of those 3 offices.
So how did you get from Ray White to Belle Property times three?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in between there. There's a lot of water under that bridge. I guess the short version of that is I finished school, did what you could do at that time, which was either a valuation degree at university, which I didn't have the marks for, or a TAFE certificate for property agency, which is a 1 year full-time course to become a licensed
Okay.
agent in New South Wales. So I did that and finished that the year after school. And then I got into real estate and I worked across 3 different roles at Ray White. I was a director of Ray White at that point and in New South Wales and was one of their chief auctioneers. So he was very kind and moved me around to get different experiences. So first I worked at Ray White at Linfield in a property management and new business role and a bit of sales. I worked at Ray White at DY on the Northern Beaches. So these were good operators that were highly successful in the Ray White business network. I was learning off those guys on the run. And then I did head office, and the head office was great because they had me in charge of setting up the auction rooms, capturing all of the office's results every month. So it was pretty basic role
Wow.
as an 18-year-old. But what I saw was what all the agents were writing in gross commission, what the officers were writing in their numbers, and I was tallying all that up. And it was really exciting to me because you could see where the opportunity was, right? Like you could see how much money these officers were making, including places like Surfers Paradise and Double Bay, and they were absolutely killing it in terms of revenue. So that was exciting. I did that, and then I left and went. I had a season in Colorado as a snowboard instructor. Wanted to go to play rugby in London. I was playing rugby in
Yeah.
Sydney. My friends had already gone to London, but I wrapped myself around a tree on Australia Day in 1999 in Colorado and came home, had surgery, and then thought, I don't have a job. My friends have gone to London already. I'm going to go to London. So I ended up there for 5 years, worked in real estate the whole time, went on a 1 year work visa, backpacking visa, ended up getting sponsored twice for 5 years each, stayed for the total of 5 years, and then left and came back. And the first and only interview I went for was Belle Property when they were head office owned. Had an interview there, and then within a year or so was going out and taking that first franchise and started from there.
I had no idea. I can't remember this is a conversation we've had and possibly forgotten that you were a rugby
Over many
player.
beers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What position do you play?
At football,
No, yeah, rugby.
oh, rugby, I was a fullback. Yeah, so
Oh,
I
wow.
played
Okay.
club rugby for Eastwood and I played club rugby for Gordon. And
Oh,
then,
wow.
yeah, and then I never played again after I busted up my knees and wrist and shoulder and all that in the snowboard crash.
I played youth rugby in Beecroft, which was, I think, part of the Eastwood district as well. So we used to play at the pitch for the grand finals there and everything, which was cool.
Nice. I
So
played in the same competition as you because I went to Epping Boys and grew up there. So I was the
you're a bit
same.
younger than me, right? I think.
I'm 47.
Yeah, I think you're a couple of years younger. It's funny enough, one of the clients I work with, Matt, if you're watching this, I actually discovered that his brother, we actually played youth rugby together. And
Oh,
his brother
nice.
said, when you say hi to Stu, say sorry because I was a bit of an arsehole. And sure enough, he was spot on. At least he was aware he was an arsehole back in the day. But yeah. So talk to me about getting a franchise in place because I know there's a lot of property franchises around. Are they expensive to buy?
This is an interesting story, actually, and I really stumbled into this. It was not a business by design or business move by design. So, head office at that time was owned by a Kiwi guy that was one of the co-founders and a Sydney property developer. And they had
Yep.
some grand ambitions to be property developers as well as these premium real estate agents. And they got part of it, but they tried to grow too quickly. It didn't work. They got
Right.
stuck in a massive development in Port Douglas, which nearly sent them bankrupt. And what ended up happening was they couldn't pay our superannuation. They owed us a lot of superannuation and they were struggling. So they were looking at ways of doing it. So my sales manager at the time, and then one of my colleagues, one of my peers, Richard Chalhoub and Mark Murphy, we
Mm.
decided to go to them and say, okay, great, we'll take the first franchise if you'll give us a franchise and we'll trade off our super that you owe us to do that. So it did cost us money, but effectively there was no change of hands of any cash. And
Okay.
that set us off on that direction. And then from there, we did Walsh Bay and Potts Point. Walsh Bay was okay, but it was just very difficult to man that in terms of find. That was just a market that was just settling. It was just being developed out,
Yep.
and we just decided that we would focus on Potts Point. And then that kind of led me to the opportunity of doing Surrey Hills. So I sold the Potts Point franchise and then went down the road and did another 4 years with another business partner at the Surrey Hills office, which was very fruitful.
I'm trying to work out because Surrey Hills obviously now is very high end, as is Potts Point, to be fair. When you joined, was it already going there or was it already where it is now?
I think it was already there. Yeah,
Right.
Surrey Hills. There was a little bit of edginess to Surrey Hills, but it was already very
Yeah.
expensive. And areas like Waterloo and Redfern have further gentrified from when I was selling
Yeah.
there back in the day, but they were already well and truly popular and on the up and very expensive. And Potts
Yep.
Point's always been like Elizabeth Bay, Potts Point, Rushcutters Bay,
Mm.
Waterloo. They were always blue chip suburbs. And I was selling premium properties in those locations as well. I was selling one bedroom apartments back in the day at 700 grand, which are probably one
Wow.
bed apartments at nearly $2 million now. So that type of,
I know.
that type of property.
I remember we were living in Coogee, we were looking at a property that was literally just one back from the street and it was one bedroom, tiny, it had a car space, 600 grand. And I look at that now and I'm like, Jesus, if I'd have bought that back in the day,
Yeah.
I'd be smiling.
So there was a lot of
So
that. It was a great experience because I got to work with a lot of sort of CEO level business owners. I remember one of them in particular was like the head of McDonald's in Australia. One of them was the owner of Space Furniture. And you got to see their unbelievable apartments, the beautiful interior design, worked with top tier architects. It was a really good job in terms of being able to hone my love of architecture and design and things as well.
like I know a lot of people who built up really strong networks, and you ask them where it came from, and they'll say, "Oh, I went to school with a bunch of people that, you know." But what would you attribute? You've got a very strong network, and you seem to be very good at forming these really strong personal relationships with people. And I don't think I'm not even sure you do it deliberately. I think it's just natural. Like, what do you attribute that down to? Because it's not a skill everybody has.
Probably wanting to be liked. I don't know. What's at the
Really?
base? I don't know. What's at the bottom of that? No, I just like doing nice things for people. I'm like that with my wife and my kids, as everyone should be. And I'm like that with all my close friends and business contacts as well. So I love networking. Like I had a 11-person CEO lunch yesterday on the Gold Coast, putting people in touch then to tee them up on friends' podcasts and TV
Mm,
appearances, things like that already. So I try to go out of my way there, and that's served me very well. Like you mentioned before, my pipe drive and the post that I did on LinkedIn. I'm pre-launch of my business, and I've got I think
mm.
84 direct referrals from top tier mortgage brokers, financial planners, and past customers and family and friends already that are sitting there in the system at 15 grand a pop leads. So it's a really good position to be in from a revenue perspective and give me confidence to act. But that comes off having all of those relationships and working hard and being generous with my time. And it's served me very well over a long period.
Do you actively set aside time every week to reach out and just connect with people, or does it just happen naturally now, or is it something you start? I'm just trying to understand the mechanics behind it a little bit. If you
Yeah,
want to delve
I
into it.
don't think it's as deliberate as that, but I do, if there's an opportunity to do it and I feel like there's value that I can add or value that I can gain from it, then I'll definitely do it. I had the CEO lunch yesterday. I went for a walk with the founder of it that organized that meeting for an hour and a half at 6 a.m. this morning at the beach. Had the dog for a walk and I just thought I'd get him one-on-one. So I went and did that and that was awesome. That's a mate of mine from when I was 18, 19 playing rugby at Gordon again. So there's connections there like that that I've kept through my entire adult life. I've had two walks this week, one with coffee walk with a mate of mine that's a really prominent commercial buyer's agent, and another one on that I've got tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. with another really prominent commercial buyer's agent. I don't do anything really in the commercial space, but these are people that refer me business. I refer them business.
Yeah.
They're both really great from a business mentor perspective. I learn things from these people and I pick up different ideas and it just reframes my thinking. And I think it's just a really good mindset to be open to
Mm.
those changes or those positive impacts people can bring. And then I'm constantly interested in business podcasts. And in particularly, my favorite one, I've probably spoken to you about it before, is My First Million. Terrible name.
Mm.
It's not necessarily about my first million, but it's very much about business mindset, niches, what people are doing that are really interesting in these tiny little gaps that are building billion dollar businesses and people that have got just great cash flow businesses. It's
Yeah.
really interesting for me. So I'm heavily into that space and love seeing those success stories and following those founders.
Do you listen? Well, I'm presuming you listen while you're walking, by the sounds of it.
I tend to, yeah. I used to do it a lot more when I was driving a lot for work, like
Mm.
I'd be traveling a lot for work, but I just don't do that anymore because I'm at
Yeah,
home the whole
me neither.
time. So I don't get as much opportunity to sit down and watch something on YouTube or watch a podcast, which is a bit of a shame. And
I
same
used to,
audiobooks. Yeah.
I used to drive down to Canberra at least once a month. I drive down south, and also do a lot more in person, and it was great because you get an hour. Well, Canberra's great, 6 hours, you can get through a lot. But that's one thing, like having the office so close to home, that doesn't happen anymore. It's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for lots of people. I've spoken to a fair few friends that say the same thing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I've got people I know who live up on the Central Coast, and they get a lot of time to do it. So obviously, you're building up this really great network. You're learning a lot. We could talk about just what you learned in building Belle property because I've always imagined real estate is quite cutthroat. It's either you sink or swim. There's probably a lot of egos floating around. It's probably a bit like personal training in there. But obviously, at some point, you decided you were quite young when you were like, I'm done with that side of the game, and you made a move up to the Gold Coast. Do you want to talk a bit about what motivated that, or looking back on it, what do you think were the best parts of making that shift? Alternately.
Yeah, I got the first franchise I did at age 29, and I was really stoked that I
Wow.
was able to do that at that age and then set myself up financially from there. And yeah, I exited at 38 and jokingly probably told you that was me retired and I'm out until I had, I think, 3 years with no work deliberately
Yeah.
and then chewed through lots of my savings and then had to go back out and recreate myself. But really, what drove that for me is there's a few things really if you get into the bottom of it. My dad passed away with Parkinson's and he had that for 30 6 years or something, basically my entire life at that point. And I wanted to spend a lot more time sort of being around him and with my sisters and things as well. And when he passed, I knew that was the very end of his kind of days. He was pretty sick and passed when he was
Yeah.
75. So there was just a bit more meaning to it all than me than just chasing the money and doing those things. It was
Mm.
just a bit more real that we just had our first baby and then, yeah, dad had gone. So that was one thing. And I think I was just burnt by it all as well. Like the last 2 years, or really, I've said this multiple times before, I should never have done the Surrey Hills franchise. I purely did it for money. It was
Right.
financially a really good decision, but it was mentally a terrible decision. And the reason is I was already over it in terms of the industry before I made the decision to do that office. I just didn't back myself that I could go do something else, and I didn't have a vision of what that might have even looked like. So I took what the opportunity was, or drove that opportunity to create it with the head franchisor at Belle, and I knew that was going to be a moneymaker, and it was. We did really well out of it in a short time, but I wasn't myself. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't want to be there. And you never get the best out of yourself when you're in that relationship with business partners and with
Mm.
staff and things like that as well. So I found it very challenging. And I was over it because I just couldn't stand having to lie all day to win. And I felt that you had to lie to sellers to overpromise the result and then list that property and then lie to all the buyers to underquote to get them there. And I just felt like everybody in the game was playing this same Russian roulette, and I didn't enjoy it. It didn't sit well with me morally, and I was just really tired and bored of that process. And the egos is a big thing as well, as you mentioned before. Lots of
Mm.
the industry, and I didn't like who I was becoming. That was probably the thing is I was probably full of ego, full of bravado, earning lots of money at a young age and pretty arrogant probably, and just didn't sit well with me either. And I wanted to change that and go to where I knew I would be in a better place. And yeah, thankfully met my wife during that period, who's
You did.
incredibly down to earth
Yes.
on social media, very small network of friends, but just in deep connections with people rather than surface level
Very
connections.
true.
No affiliation with Sydney whatsoever. She's from Christchurch. Didn't like the social climbing in the eastern suburbs
Yeah.
and the egos. Doesn't like all the flash things like that. And that was just really brought me down to earth and where I needed to be. And then I was really in a confident position to go and do something else that I was passionate about.
See, it's interesting because I've known you for a long period of time. And although, yeah, absolutely, there was a lifestyle aspect that you really enjoyed, I never got a sense of you as being someone who there was any fake veneer. You were very genuine, you were very personable. And I never saw this sort of, maybe I just wasn't close enough to you at the time, but I didn't see you change specifically. But maybe you were very good at delineating between work and home life. Maybe that was the secret
Yeah,
to
I
it.
think I was in a pretty bad relationship. Like it all looked good on the surface with my long-term partner before I got married, but I was actively trying to get out of that relationship for quite a
Mm.
while. And that relationship was the complete opposite of my marriage. It was all about being seen at every bar and restaurant opening and staying at all the nicest hotels and traveling
Yeah.
and putting it all on social media and all those toxic things like that. Actually, when you get older or smarter, you realize actually have no real benefit in your life.
Mm.
It can be fun at the time. So yeah, it was about getting real for me. And then when I got real, it was like, okay, well, then where's the switch to turn on and find that passion project? And yeah, that really what drove me back to building Hello Haus. That was the start of it. And Hello Haus was an idea that I had for probably 10 years before I actually did it. It was
Wow.
lacking the confidence to do it, not understanding how it could be done, probably way, way too early for the market to actually realize that there was an opportunity there, perhaps, maybe not, but I was definitely really early to that thought. And yeah, and I've realized this with a few things. Like I remember with a mutual friend of ours, Mark, sitting in probably 2007, 2008 with an app designer trying to come up with a way of building this investment property platform, of which we
Mm.
fast forward to 2025 and there's two or three of these that have just come out in the last 2 to 3 to 5 years and is the future of how everyone's buying property. So I've had those kind of ideas. I just didn't have the execution or the skill set or the confidence to go and do that. Yeah, that was really interesting looking back as well.
It's funny looking back because I've still got access to the page on LinkedIn. I pitched to StartMate an idea with Dre, actually Dre from In the Mix.
Yeah.
He was going to do developing, and we pitched an idea called Advice Angel. And the whole idea was a directory, online directory where people go and make reviews of advisors. And a friend of mine actually shared some of the feedback from some of the angels. And they were like, yeah, I really like the team, but I hate the industry, hate the financial service industry. And this was when fintech just wasn't getting traction. And it's ironic now, one of the most fastest growing, I guess, data sources on that is advisor ratings, which is
Yeah.
essentially the same idea. So sometimes it's not the right, it's maybe the right idea, but it's not in the right time. Or
Yeah.
alternatively, you got the right idea, but you're not the person to implement it. But it's really
Yep.
interesting how often you can look back and go, oh, yeah, that idea, I heard that before. But it just all comes together at a certain point in time. So we're now into the beginning of Hello House, because you went up to the Gold Coast. You obviously did what you do well, which is go out and spot, right? I'm going to invest in that house and flip it, essentially what you were doing. But I remember you saying, I'm kind of retired. I've seen it so many times. I've seen clients who retire, and they say the same thing, particularly the entrepreneur. Yeah, I'm done. I'm finished. And then it's 3 years later, they go, I'm bored, crapless. Or so you've suddenly decided, I'm going to start this thing called Hello House. Talk to me about how you go from, yeah, oh, it's a good idea, to screw it, I'm going to do it. And then suddenly, next thing you know, a year down the track, it's up and running. Give us the timeline.
I had probably 3 years, give or take, off, and we raised the family, and I had the time of my life, like just chilled at home, bare feet, and really doing not much, just traveling lots and being part
Yep.
of the family. And that was the reset mentally that I needed after going through the 4 years before that. So I don't know if it was like a midlife crisis, a mental breakdown, whatever. It wasn't quite as harsh as that or as heavy as that, but it was some sort of major reset in my life that my body just didn't want to be working and wanted to do something
Mm,
different. But what happened was I kept getting clients or friends and family
mm.
ringing me asking for advice nonstop on property and keep
Wow.
asking me to, could you do this for me or could you do that for me? And I just find myself back in this position where what I realize they need is most people don't have a clue about the strategy of buying a property and being honest with themselves about what that's got to look like for them to buy something in a reasonable time frame. Not many people really like the confrontation of negotiation and they lack that skill set. So there's a real need for it. So I think I just got to a point where I'm like, this is just, it keeps repeating itself. Everyone is going through this cycle. And when they do, they reach out to me because they perceive me as an expert in that space. So I really just need to take confidence from that and say, there's absolutely a need for this. How
Mm,
can I package it up to make it work commercially? And if I go back to being an estate agent, I guess, for this journey, I was lucky that it was the rise of the buyer's agents in Sydney
yeah.
was still a sales agent. And what I saw was people like yourself, and this isn't directed at you, but people like yourself that would be looking for their home. They'd be looking for months and months. We'd have great rapport. I'd see you at the open for inspections. I'd call you with listing opportunities, blah, 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 but you weren't able to secure a property for right or wrong.
No.
Then I would see you turn up with a buyer's agent. And your perception of that would have been, I haven't been able to do this successfully myself, so I'm going to pay for an
Mm,
expert help. This is a luxury item, and they're going to get the job done. But what I saw on the other side of that fence was the buyer's agents were in an absolute rush, like a bull in a china shop, just to knock the deal over as quickly as possible. They were incredibly
mm,
transactional. All they wanted to do was get to these properties before anyone else, and they would pay an absolute premium with a cherry on top for the luxury item of no competition or little competition. So I looked at that and I thought, wow, this is interesting because all I want to do is negotiate all day. That's my dream job when
mm,
I was being an estate agent. I hate the rest of the game. And I'm seeing these buyer's agents, which are effectively doing negotiation, but they're doing a really like average job of it, and they're making a lot of money. And it's weird that the buyer is handballing it down the road to this perceived expert, but
mm,
the expert is just rushing to spend all their money and some. And I know that from working inside that game that it's really easy to fudge the numbers. If a property's worth 2 million bucks and you've got 2 million and 20, I can get you to 2 million and 50 or 2.1 million very easily by just tweaking the comparable sales that I choose to show you or whatever it might be. It's very easy to manipulate that from both sides of the game. But whether I'm
yeah.
representing you as a buyer's agent or as the selling agent, of course, I fight against that. My whole business is built around transparency and trust and not doing
Mm,
that. And I can give you some really raw examples from yesterday where I lost $45,000 in revenue because I talked three clients out that were at the finish line from not buying it because there was no value there, even though it was within their budget to do. It was very easy for me to tweak the numbers, give them the confidence to
mm,
get it done, but I pulled back and took their money off the table and didn't buy it. So I've got to do all the rework on those again, and I lost 45 grand yesterday. So that's that, but that's why those customers will refer me their family and friends because they know because I can highlight to them this is where I could have pushed you and where another buyer's agent would have to get that deal done. But there's better value out there, and now let me go and find that for you. And people go, "Wow, okay, well that would have been really easy for you, job done." But you're going to go the long way around now and do it the right advice. And I think that's just so important. So I watched the buyers agents do that, and I thought, okay, there's an opportunity where
mm,
I can do something different. But how am I going to compete against these guys? So one was cost, so I wanted to make it more cost effective. Two was I needed to make it performance driven.
Yep.
because it's not, and it still isn't today. And I wanted to build my dream at the time, and I said this out loud lots of times to different people in the media and things. I wanted to build the first transparent real estate business of its kind globally, because my industry is full of smoke and mirrors. Everyone's
Yep.
lying to everyone. There's no accountability. There's very limited trust. I wanted to build something that was completely transparent so I could show you and quantify the savings that I made. So I launched Australia's first or global first no win, no fee negotiation service.
Mm,
It was completely transparent. You found the property.
I did.
You set the target price based on my analysis, and I support whatever that decision is. And then I take a performance cut of the savings that I make you. And that got great traction in the media. It was really well received by my clients, and that was the start of it. It was a terrible start, and I'll tell you those reasons why, but that was the start of it. Yeah.
It's interesting. You'd be familiar with Alex Hormozi stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I've
It's
already.
a kind. The proposal is very similar. It's I'm going to come in. I'm going to do something for him. It's only going to work if it's value driven, but it's also backed by the fact that you're very good at doing this. It's interesting. A lot of people try and mimic the Alex Hormozi thing, but the thing you don't talk about is Jim Launch was very good at filling
What
gyms.
it,
That's what it.
yeah.
Yeah. Without that, it doesn't work. This translates really well to advice as well, because obviously with most good advisors, they want to do the right thing by their clients. I think the same is true of good mortgage brokers and definitely good accountants as well. But the challenge in it is cost effective. Performance driven is an interesting one because actually let's dive into performance driven. Like, how can you make the promise that you're going to get a better deal than they would? And is it because it's transactional? Could you do it if it was more of an ongoing relationship? Yeah, it's a difficult one
It's a
because
good
you've got to be able to
question.
control the outcome, right?
Yeah, and I think the best thing to say is no one can guarantee you anything when you're buying
Mm,
property because it's not an exact science and it's very difficult to price emotion, right? So when you're competing against other buyers, the other buyers don't have a clue. They're misled and influenced by the agent who's manipulating the price on behalf of the seller, and they're easily misled. So it's very difficult when you're competing against those people, which is
mm.
why a lot of what we do is coaching people or actually doing it for them is to get the customer at an earlier stage to these properties to reduce the buyer competition, have greater choice in terms of the assets, meet more motivated sellers, which creates more favorable negotiation outcomes. So that's really important. But in terms of your question, really for me, the way that I did it, and I'll give you the stats that I had for the last 7 years of Hello Haus before I exited, is
Yeah.
our average purchase price was 1.3 million across the country. Our average analysis, when you put a property forward to us, within 3 hours, we would have a written analysis, a full deep dive, and we could price properties within 2% of the eventual sale price on the conservative side. And we did that by tracking every analysis we do versus the eventual sale price. And we got it wildly wrong on multiple occasions because of the reasons that I just said. But over time, we were within 2% and we were on the low side because we were conservative by nature. So that gave our clients a lot of confidence. So we could
Wow.
clearly quantify the value by looking at comparable sales evidence, competing listings, understanding consumer sentiment and confidence levels in the market, and how difficult it is to replace that asset. What's your fear of loss? And I think most people that
Yeah.
aren't in property don't get that, and that's really key to understanding where value sits. Is what's your fear of loss in terms of this? If I miss this property today,
Mm.
it take me 6 months to replicate that asset in a rising market, or is there another one around the corner? There's another bus coming in 10 minutes time. Yeah.
That's something you said to me. You're like, because obviously I was coming into this probably way more emotionally when I bought this place than you were. But you did say to me, there was a factor in your consideration. You looked at it and go, is this a unique property? Yeah, it's unique, which means you're going to be able to utilize it because there's not many like it. And that was a real insight into a different way of thinking. But that's really interesting because metrics, yeah,
So
it hadn't
that's
struck me before how important tracking the actual metrics would be to being able to go yes or no.
Well, no one does it because it doesn't suit their narrative in my industry. So no one talks about it from accountability and accuracy because it just there's no value in that in terms of
Mm,
signing on and giving people confidence to work with them. And it's a lot of bloody work. It takes a huge amount of work. It really is pulling the curtains apart and letting people into the system, right? Behind you,
mm,
building public basically, and it's quite risky. So I track that. So they're two of the metrics. And then the
okay.
third one, it's really important, and this is really where the business was built was around how much money we saved you, and we could quantify that. So after we did that accurate
Mm,
analysis, I then said, okay, great, Stuart, 12 Smith Street in Piedmont that you want to buy. Here's all the reasons why you should pay 1.2 million for it. I'll support whatever your decision is. What's your final walkaway number before I start those negotiations? And hypothetically, let's just say it's 1.2 million. Let's talk about 1.3 because that was our average purchase price. Our average saving below the client's target price was $41,000. So we could work out what they set us and then what we bought it at. And then we had a clear number in terms of how we were adding value. Now that was an average. Obviously, the more we spent, the more we saved, the lower the savings. But all we could do was work with those clean numbers and we built our marketing campaign around that. And that really resonated with our customers because they could see the value proposition. Okay, you're charging me 7 grand. And on average, I'm going to be $41,000 ahead, and you're going to do all the work for me and take away alleviate all the agent game playing, bring me certainty around price, reduce my stress and the time I invest in the process. Job done.
It's interesting because I'm just listening to you talk. There's something a lot of financial planners, my clients talk about. They say the fact that knowledge of mathematics and knowledge of how money works, they look like the same thing and they're not. And I listen to you talk. I don't know whether you were good at maths at school, but you really know your numbers when it comes to the figures, right?
I'm dialed in on these things because these were core business marketing points that we needed to hit and we needed to focus on. And I was the front end of the business explaining that to people and how it worked to give them confidence to work with us. Yeah, it's very real in my brain.
Yeah, I can tell. So you start off, and the first thing I've written down is you had a really strong offer, had a kind of a no-brainer offer, and you also had the capability in behind it. So you get traction, you start to get lead flow. What was the next problem you hit? It must have been capacity, or was it something else first?
There's two. Deal flow is one, which I think is most people's issue is how to find those leads.
Yeah.
And that leads into how to market yourself. And I did a poor job of that, I think, in general. But
Really?
one of the key things is probably a little bit later than that, you and I having a really good chat. I vividly remember where I was sitting or standing while we were talking at a particular house where we had a long chat about pricing and value. And that kind of reset my thinking about my worth. And to be honest, you were so on the money that I didn't take enough of your advice. And if I actually went the whole hog and backed myself, we would be looking at a very different conversation today versus where it was because I've gone into doing this myself. We're jumping around a little bit now into the business that I'm doing now, and I'm charging effectively double what I charged then. And I'm getting, it's an easier yes to work with me than it was before. Like people really understand the value proposition and it was just charging more for it and being a quality service. I think it was looked
Yeah.
at as the Mickey Mouse business before because there wasn't enough hurt money from the client to invest in that process. And they
No,
were weighing up us versus a full service buyer's agent. And they were like, what can you do for me for 7 grand? The guy charging me 60 grand is not going to do. This is ridiculous. I don't believe you that you can do that for 7 grand. And they'd go and sign for the 60 grand and overpay by another 50 grand. And it's like, you can lead a horse to water, but I was just doing a bad job of marketing at that point.
Oh, mate, when you did it for me and you put the fee, and you even discounted the fee for me, which was completely unnecessary because you put more work into it because we were friends. But I honestly think I got away with an absolute steal.
Well, that's good. Maybe that's why I get lots of referrals. I think it's too
Well,
cheap.
look, we can keep talking about Hello House because obviously after you got your pricing, your value, that's where you take, okay, I've got something and I know how to do it. And then you put the frame around it, which is, okay, but how do I price it so it's profitable? How do I get the value proposition so it's not just me? And then you come into the staffing piece. But we could maybe fast track it a little bit and we can talk. Did you want to talk about how you've evolved your thinking? Maybe it's about now you've got this new business. What are the things that you're doing better, faster, and more easily in building this business? Because I'm
Yeah.
presuming the growth in the new business is probably outpacing Hello House at this
Oh,
stage.
well, massively, massively. Yeah. I mean, we 5x'd Hello House in the last 14 months before the acquisition. So we were growing
5x,
really
wow.
quickly. That was going to be a behemoth of a business, I think. And obviously, Lendy and Aussie Home Loans bought that and will do what they want with it. That's probably a conversation we can get to later on into it. But I think that to finish off on that start bit of Hello House, the biggest mistake that I made was no win, no fee, because all I attracted was bottom feeders not wanting to pay. So
Yeah,
I
well,
was aiming at the wrong customer and just had all those messages mixed up. And it wasn't until I put a retainer plus a performance fee into play that it took off a little bit more and you could see there was a business there. And then when it eventually was acquired by Listing Loop in August 2023, the first thing they did, and rightly so, because I think it was a very smart move, was say, okay, it's just a bit hard to market this performance fee aspect. People, I think, will resonate more with certainty of the cost so they can draw that value proposition easily in their mind. So they made it a flat fee. And when we made it a flat fee and we had obviously more lead flow, the business then took off. It was quite easy to sell that it was a flat fee or whatever it was. We moved it like 5 times in the last 14 months. It went up and up and up and up and was probably due to go up to about 10 grand. And I left when it
right.
was at 7,200, I think.
One of the strategies I've seen works really well, and you don't really need to do it if you're confident, but if you've got one model which is a no-brainer, if we've no win, no fee, and you've got another model which is a flat fee, you can offer them side by side.
Yeah, split test it.
Yeah, you split test it, but you make the upside of the no, like it's no win, no fee, but if there is a win, the fee's big. versus flat fee, guaranteed. That's a really good way of testing whether or not people get there. That's it.
Is it too late to go back to that performance fee to sting you for a bit more cash on your one?
No, but I'm pretty sure next time I buy the next property, you'll make it up. Well, you should do anyway. I still haven't had a leak fix, by the way, but there we go. That's another thing. That's really useful because one of the things whenever I'm doing pricing and you're butting again, and look, to be honest, I think everyone wants to be able to offer something where there is going to be a win-win of value. Because if you're getting more than if you're a real estate agent and you're expecting the client to reduce their fee by a massive amount, but you still want to get your 2% or whatever the hell it is these days, that's not a value. It's you've got to reduce. But on the flip side, if you're doing all the work and you're not getting the value, then that's not going to work either. And I think a lot of people get nervous about charging when if you got something that's proven, and you should charge premium. If you've got a premium offer, charge premium fees because it's not cheap.
Well, that's
Otherwise,
the
you're a charity.
Mosey thing as well, isn't it? It's charge 3 or 4 times more than what you think you can get. And I'm not at that point yet because and this is probably a personality order of mine or fault of mine, but I really struggle unless I feel like I'm creating value for the customer. And I feel like I'm taking the piss if I'm charging too much money or not delivering on that high level quality service and the rest of it. So I struggle with that part of it. And it's probably just me that's in my own way. But even just going from the 7,200 up to 15 grand now, and then when I launch the business in July, I'll go to 20. It's just about having that level of confidence. And I took a lot of confidence from exiting Hello Haus and then what happened next. I had 2 months of people and chasing me, following me up, offering me equity positions in businesses, talking to me about different prop tech things that they were building and wanting my commentary on it and feedback on it. And I realized that there was a huge amount of people watching what I was doing at Hello Haus, even though I was getting no feedback at all from the market and from the industry. But I had some really high profile people in Australia, including the co-founders of Lendy. It's probably $2 to $3 billion business, ringing me directly saying, hey, we were watching what you were doing and what you were doing is the future of how Australians are going to transact property and we'd love to talk. So that was like, I took a huge amount of confidence from that because I'm like, okay, this is good. Now I know I absolutely was on the right track. I was underselling myself. Let's pull apart really where the value is and hone in on those things. And that's worked well for me since.
I always feel this is one of the lonely parts of building smaller businesses, or if you even stay small, is you can be doing something and working really hard, and at times you won't know whether it's just not happening. You get results for people. You don't know whether it's registering at a higher level, and you don't know whether it's because you're not really doing anything new, or alternatively, people aren't just telling you. And that's one of the challenges, right? You've got to every day you got to come in and trust your own judgment. Maybe you get a bit of feedback here and there, but you don't have the feedback loops that potentially you'd have if you're part of a larger organization.
That is a challenge for me. And I probably think that's part of the reason that you hit on in terms of the networking is because I'm looking for that nod of approval. I'm looking for ideas. I'm bouncing things off people to close down rabbit holes that I might have gone down. And yeah, even just doing it solo now. I mean, I've got a team working with me who are fantastic so far, but I haven't got a business partner as such. Previously with Drew at Hello Haus, Drew and I would just pull the whiteboard out, right? And we'd go and have a beer or whatever, and we'd sit there and go, okay, what do we do here? We've got a problem here, or there's an opportunity there. How do we go about it? And Drew was so good at being able to pull things apart and the pros and cons of both, and we just talk it out. And often we would talk it out in 10 minutes or 20 minutes and be done.
Yeah.
You go round and round in circles as a solo operator, often if you're not crystal clear on those decision making.
Yeah, you absolutely do. It's a double-edged sword because I know, having worked with a lot of businesses, it can be going really well and then it's not, and the partnership destroys the business. But if it goes really well, yeah, 3 people really focused on building a business will outperform one most of the time until they don't, so to speak. Let's bring it forward. Let's talk about, do you want to talk a bit about the exit? Because I know there's a lot of businesses I've worked with where they have either had taken equity investment, either from another firm or equity investment. Sometimes it works out, but a lot of the time it doesn't.
Yeah, mine's a story of it doesn't. And mine was a story of it does until it didn't. And I don't know if that's true a lot with some of the stories that you've seen as well. But if you go back to August 2023 or February 2023, my son started at kindergarten and I met one of the dads. I'd never spoken to him before. Turns out he was entrepreneurial and had a few things in common, started chatting, had a coffee. I connected him with one of my friends who then went on to, I think, invest $1 million in his startup. And he connected me with another startup entrepreneur in Melbourne who ended up acquiring my business. Like from one coffee, we ended up doing a lot of business, which is why networking can be really powerful. But that relationship looked great on paper. I just was really naive. So I've learnt a huge amount since then, both in terms of how to structure those deals, red flags, backing my better judgment and my gut feel, and underselling my true value. That underselling the true value thing has repeated itself so many times in the last 8 months, which has been great. Because once you make that mental switch to I'm a high performer, I'm worth it, you need me, or whatever that looks like, into wherever you need to apply it, it changes your whole outlook, I think, in life, and is very powerful. That's been a big shift for me, a big powerful shift. In February 2023, leading up to the August acquisition, I had a business that was performing okay. It was a small business. We didn't have really any marketing. We had some sort of product market fit in terms of the customers that we were working with. We were getting great results and they were referring their customers, but it was very small data sample. And it wasn't sustainable have that many people in the business. It was a great one-person business. It was a decent two-person business, but when we were 4 or 5, we just couldn't kick on beyond that without any sort of marketing. And they approached us. This is Listing Loop. And they had the opposite problem. They had 4,000, this is their words, 4,000 of my ideal customer, but no real way to monetize them. 4,000 a month. So they built for lack of a better term, a great mousetrap in terms of capturing these people online that would come through and register as a user on the Listing Loop platform, which was an off-market version of realestate.com. But then they had no way of selling them anything and actually transacting and really making any real money. So they saw Hello Haus as a perfect fit there to offer those services to help those customers secure the property that they wanted. So on paper, that was a really good match. Because it looked so good and the numbers looked so great, I didn't really push as hard as I probably could for the value of our business. We didn't get a seat on the board. We ended up being the third biggest shareholder. There was 2 billionaires, I think, on the board as well. And we were just out-muscled, outgunned, outsmarted by bigger fish and grossly, I'll say this with a disclaimer because I don't want to get sued, but my belief is that I was grossly misled in terms of them acquiring my business. But that's a conversation for a different day. Like, it's water under the bridge. They'll argue differently. But anyway, we worked together for 14 months. We all did our best work and tried as hard as we could. We 5x'd Hello Haus in that time frame, which was great. The relationship wasn't great with the founder of the Listing Loop and the board. We've had a bit of a Mexican standoff in terms of the direction that they were going and what we wanted to do and how we wanted to run our business and do the job. And then they basically offered us a parachute. Here's the last tranche of your shares. You guys could probably disappear now if you want. And we were like, that's a really good outcome. We're out, and parachuted out of there. And then I think 17 days later, unbeknown to us, they went into voluntary administration. So really, I feel like we were handballed out of there because it saved them any future legal costs and issues. And it's my understanding or my guess that they knew what was coming. They must have at board.
Yeah, they must have.
And we didn't, and we weren't told anything about that. And then Lendy came in and acquired the business they acquired the Hello Haus business, and they bought the tech stack of Listing Loop out of the voluntary administration process. What was a business that should have been worth, even just my business should have been worth somewhere between 7 to 10 million. It's a lot for the value of the debt, like for a couple hundred, or however much debt they had in terms of what Lendy took out. So it was very sad to watch that happen, and you realize what people do when they're under stress, right? And what comes out of that. Really eye-opening and disappointing to see how some people act.
I was talking to Rachel about this because she's been in a situation recently where people behave poorly, and there's at least 3 situations in the last month where you look at it and go, that's not right. And values are a difficult thing because they're personal, right? And my version of that's not right is not going to be the same as your version. But there's a point at which you go, that's the kind of behavior that you shouldn't, at some point, somebody with a little bit of a self-conscience or whatever is going to look in the mirror and go, I might have done the wrong thing there. And it happens so often. And I sometimes feel like people justify it by saying that's business. As if just because it's business, you can screw people over left and center. And it's a sad reality of that side. But to put a context on it, I've just found that when it's happened to me, or you've got to reach a point where you go, you know what, I'm going to move on. I'm going to put it behind me. It was meant to be. If they get theirs, they'll get theirs, but for the time being, I'm just going to put it down a learning experience and next.
Yeah, that's the only thing you can do if you're a positive person and with that mindset. And that's, of course, what I did. But yeah, there's definitely a period of grief that you go through to watch 7 years of your baby effectively burnt in one fire. Very frustrating for me because you spend so much time working on projects like that to finally start to see that it's working and going in the right direction. And there's the potential there for that to be a really big business if it was handled right. But just, yeah, I think egos, management
Yeah.
styles, there's just a whole heap of different things that humans do to each other yeah, are inadvisable.
There was a Dead Mouse song with the lyric, then watch it burn. And that was my theme for a long time after it happened to me. I would just listen to that and go and get it my own. But even revenge fades away in the end.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think I can't live in that headspace either for very long.
no,
So I just
no,
looked at it
that's
and go,
not true.
okay, great. Then that's happened. That's fucked. What do we do about it? I'm going to rebuild. How am I going to rebuild? I'm once bitten, twice shy about business partners, about trusting other people. I'm going to be very low key, but very
Mm,
deliberate about what I do next. And I'm going to pick at the carcass of what I built with Hello Haus, and I'm going to rewrite the next business plan and take out all the negatives and all the mistakes that we made previously, which were there's small things that made a big impact. It was things like price, right? It
yeah,
was things like we gave the customers a 1 year contract, which meant we attracted people that didn't really want to make a decision anytime soon, which meant we just did huge amounts of
that's
rework.
smart.
Then the contract I changed to 3 months and I put a certain amount of hits or you've got to repay. And then when you do that, and when you talk like that to customers up front, when you're attracting the right people, they resonate with that and they're not put off by that because they're the ones that actually want to transact quick. They want to transact in a reasonable time frame. So I'm 6 months, 5 months in now doing this behind the scenes before I launch, and I haven't had anyone beyond. I think it takes about 1 to 3 weeks for me to find a property for someone, and the average time an Australian takes is 10.1 months going on.
Wow.
Once you get the strategy part, once you get the language right, that they're on board with you, it's not about rushing. If it takes 3 months, it takes 3 months. But I really get people dialed in quickly to where the value pockets are
Mm,
in their target market and get them reset in terms of what their dollars will afford them and then deliver on it. And of course, when you're an expert negotiator, I significantly increase the percentage chance you're going to win that property in buyer competition.
yeah.
And that's the other thing that they just overlook when they go it alone is that they might be able to create these opportunities, but they just keep losing. And the average Australian loses 5 times before they typically compromise and overpay on the sixth property. And that leads to 45% of Australians reporting to have buyer's remorse because they bought the wrong property, overpaid, or a combination of the two.
Which isn't good for it's not good for an industry. Like in coaching, that's one of the issues. Like, yeah, people buy coaching programs. Eventually, they get stiffed by so many coaches who are really good at marketing and really crappy at coaching.
Yeah.
They just view this coaches are all made of the same stuff, and it's a shame. Tell me about the new business. Tell me about is it officially called ScottAggett.com or is it something else?
The ScottAggett.com, there's a long story here. I'll do the shorter version and we can unpack
Okay.
anything you want. But the short version is I did nothing in November and December. And in January, I was sitting there watching the cricket. And I'm like, there's no way of people being able to find me. I'm sitting on the sofa. None of my clients can find me because everything online for the last 7 years has been about Hello House. So I can't
Yes.
access that email, that website, anything else and to find me. So I thought I'll just spin out ScottAggett.com and do a very basic version of this so
Yep.
people can grab me. That worked fantastic. And the reason I did that is because I think it might have been even the guys, the co-founders of Lendy, told me that there's 75 people a month that Google your name. And I was like, okay, great. I own ScottAggett.com. I might as well put a website there and do something
Mm.
about it. That number, I asked yesterday, my web developer, is over 500 people a month currently. 5 months later, or 4.5 months
Wow.
later. So clearly, this is working and resonating with people. What I did is I really focused on building a negotiation service. So I spent time to define the ultimate kind of done with you service that was, I guess, a Hello House 2.0, but really focused on owner occupiers because that TAM is massive. There's a huge opportunity there. Clearly, Lendy have changed their business model from being a company that writes home loans to a property company that does home loans as well. And they want to capture
Okay.
all of the business inside their app, start to finish on that customer journey. They identified that what I had created was, as I said earlier, the future of how people are going to buy. So I knew that there's a big market to go after, and that at some
Yeah.
point, if Lendy get it right, which they will, because they're incredibly smart and diligent operators, then it'll open the door for CommBank, Macquarie, everyone else doing the same thing, right? They'll all want a piece of collecting more of the money, settling more loans faster, keeping their
Yep.
customer all in one place, increasing the quality of the customer journey, and they're more likely to trade again. And also then they can understand and track where their equity is in those properties, tap them on the shoulder when it's the right time to buy in their super fund or to buy an investment property or what it might be. So
Yep.
I designed this negotiation business. I did some work with a marketer and Tony said to me, you want the shortest possible name that, and a .com address. So I went overseas online and bought propertynegotiators.com. And I was pretty happy with myself because I'm like, that does what it says on the pack. There could not
Yeah.
be a better domain name globally for me than that for SEO and the rest of it. So I have got that in the background ready to build. But the story is that, and this is the interesting thing for me, is that Since January, and since I just started talking to all my referring partners, like mortgage brokers and people like yourself, what's come is just this huge wave of property investors. And it's this non-stop investor after investor. So I'm like, I'm swimming against the tide here. Like I'm looking at building another niche service in an area where I've almost got to go and create that market. Australians aren't aware that there's a negotiation service they could use. 97% of Australians go it alone. So that's going to take a lot of marketing. There's some risks still involved. I have done that before with Hello Haus, but this is almost starting again from scratch and having to educate the market. Now, Lendy have got the ability to do this because they've got 8,000 new loans a month that they write. They've got a juggernaut of customers. They're talking to 5.5 million or more on their database of Australians that own a property or looking to buy. They've got the ability to throw multi-million dollars worth of marketing dollars out there to show them that there's a new way of buying property. I don't. So I'm looking at that going, it's great that Lendy are doing that because they're going to put a big song and dance around this in the market and educate people that exists. And there's an
Yeah.
opportunity there. So there's scope for other people to build businesses in that space. However, it's riskier. I always fought being a buyer's agent and doing the whole investor thing because my skill set is always being expert negotiator. So I really wanted to
Yeah.
be the differentiator there is the negotiation skill. But I just kept feeling like I'm just fighting, I'm swimming against the tide. Why don't I just run with it and be open-minded and really focus on investors for a little while? That's turned into that pipe drive that you've seen by just getting great results for my customers and going above and beyond. And I really changed the language that I use in from January or February on. And I really spoke about something that I am passionate about, which is my philosophy for investing in property is to use the data to get to these markets at an earlier stage. So I'm looking at getting 6 to 18 months ahead of the market. And there's some fantastic tools that are in the marketplace like HTag that can give you the ability to analyze that high level data and to choose these locations that are going to go from cold markets to warm markets and warm markets to hot. And the language that I used when I was talking to my customers was it's green shoot investing. Yeah, it's getting to these stages. So you're either option A buyer and you're looking for the ego boost of quick capital growth. You need that sugar hit. You need it to be performing tomorrow. And for some customers, they do need that. And still right now, I buy in hotspot locations if the customer needs that. But
Yeah.
when I gave them option B, 99% of people resonate with, I want to see the full growth cycle and I want to get to these areas with less competition, more choice, more motivated sellers, and the ability to create more favorable negotiation outcomes. And I want to hold it long term. So I went and I thought, I'm not going to fight this either. So I went and registered Green Shoots Investing, greenshootesproperty.com, and everything around Green Shoots. And what I'm launching in July is going to be greenshootesproperty.com. And the language shift has been really interesting with my clients is that they just get it. It just makes sense straight away. And hopefully that will resonate with the general public when we launch Green Shoots in the coming month or so.
I really like the name. I really do. It's got so much going for it. Green, it's good. Well,
Green is
it's
good.
even good. Shoots, because it's, yeah, no, thank you. I've absolutely nailed it on that one. Property negotiator is good, but this is more, property negotiator is very like, bang, this is what we do. Green Shoots has got a bit of personality to it.
Yeah, and I think there's a time and a place for both of them, but I see green shoots, like if I can talk from a business perspective now rather than working for the customer, the view I've got of green shoots is this is going to be a really good cash flow business, right? It's going to be a safe cash flow business where I can build up really great take home pay every month and build a sustainable business like that I can automate a lot of that process and put really good people around me to do much of that work. Property negotiators is going to need me to lead from the front. It's going to be all about me in the interim because that's my kind of skill set and my profile in the media online. And I'm going to have to drive that really hard myself. So it's going to take a lot more of me, if you like. And I see that as let's build the cash flow business first. And then we're in a position where we're not really taking any risks. We can afford to go and have a swing at property negotiators if I want to do that in whatever, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years time. But I feel like there's no rush. And I've really changed my mentality from hanging around with mates like Jordan De Jong, who came and stayed at the ski lodge in February with me. And we spent a lot of time up and down ski lifts in regional Japan, just chatting together. And he's a guy that's built a fantastic SaaS business. He works out of the ice bath and the sauna place, which he goes to every day, spends lots of time with his daughter and his wife. And he's also got an unbelievably high profit business that he's basically got on a lot of it on automation. He really does work hard and smart when he needs to, but he's built a very enviable business. And one of the things that I loved watching Geordie is that his focus is not on making money. His focus is on lifestyle. How do I build a business that's safe? How do I build a business that's adding value to my customers? How do I build a business that's highly profitable? And how do I automate that process to give me my time back? Because time is the luxury, time is the flex. When I look at all the competitors, a lot of my competitors are in that buyer's agent space doing that investor work. You just see everyone rushing for 50, 80, 100 a month. It's a sausage factory. It's cookie cutter advice. You have seen this in the finance world, I'm sure, as well. It's a race to the bottom. It's a race to how fast the buyer's agent can buy a Lamborghini and build 80 investment properties of their own portfolio. I see it all day. I see it all through the feed on LinkedIn and Facebook. All the talk is about how much money you can make. It's not about actually giving any value to the customer. And I look at it now differently, and I'm like, actually, I don't necessarily even want to scale a business. I want to build a business that gets to X, and X gives me this lifestyle and this many man hours back and a fantastic family life. That is the flex for me. So I'm looking at it going, okay, we can write this business plan on the back of an envelope. We do this for these people, and we're going to do this many a month, and it's going to print me that. That's it. Really simple. Do you buy into that or not to my team?
Man, it's been such a reminder. The reason I left corporate is I was walking through an airport in on the way to Melbourne, and I grabbed a copy of 4-hour work week, and I read that, and that was the moment I went, I was in corporate. I'm doing it wrong. This is all wrong. And that had been my mantra.
You and every other male of our age at that point, which we all read that 3 times.
Absolutely, little balloon and sitting out there, and that was so much of what was in there. You look back at it now, that was piecing together offshoring, or it's now almost
drop shipping and everything he was doing, wasn't he?
I know he was doing. Yeah, he was doing all of that, selling vitamins and all the rest of it. But I think sometimes, particularly when you get older, you sometimes, and particularly with all the noise around social media, you see it particularly on LinkedIn, which is everybody putting their best. You sometimes forget exactly why you set out to do things, and it's spot on. It's like it was never for me about buying a Lamborghini or having this. It was always about being able to do stuff I wanted to do with the people I wanted to do it, and have enough money, but not. I was never trying to take over the world. And I feel like that's exactly the essence of what you're talking about, which is having a successful business, make a lot of money, but make enough money. Don't just collect it for the sake of collecting it.
Yeah. And I'm tired of the whole look at my life online as well in that regard. You have to play that game to a certain degree to fill the feed in the algorithm. And I'm trying to do it in a way with my content that is, I watch intently with what my competitors are doing, and it's a lot about, look at this success, look at this property we bought, look at that, look at all the growth rates and all the rest of it. But there's not a lot of, there's some element of skill in that, but I've not trying to go that way necessarily. Mine's more about the skill set, and our superpower is negotiation. Let me break down the psychology of the buying process, and let me show you that I absolutely am a master of my craft. That's going to give you a great deal of confidence that you're dealing with someone that knows what they're doing and takes it deeply personal and is passionate. I often say to my clients on the first call, and in these words, because this is how I talk at home and this is how I talk in life, I'll say, I fucking love it. Negotiation for me, and you've seen this in real life, Stu, buying your place. I fucking love it. It's a contact sport, and I just cannot get enough of it. And when we get to that point, that's when you're going to see me wagging my tail, because I am so excited when I get to the negotiation bit, because I just love putting the gloves on and start swinging. That's my favorite part of the day. Yeah.
I've never seen you in negotiation, but I've seen you talk about negotiation, and you've advised me how to do it. And the one thing that strikes me about the way you do it is it's like you do it in such a way that isn't aggressive. It's not nasty. It's just matter of fact. It's almost put the pistols on the table. Let's have a conversation. And it's their tricks. They know you know their tricks, and therefore you don't even have to point it out. It's just you cut to the chase, but without it being who's got the more expensive watch or the bigger dick or whatever it is. It's a thing of beauty. It really is.
And it's fun I think the most I learned around this, which I think is really important, this is a chat I had actually to my friend, the CEO organizer yesterday for the event when I went for the walk this morning with him. He did a really good post about what he did yesterday on LinkedIn and brought that group together. And I said to him, that's a great post. I would have probably done the same thing, but really, you're not sharing any value there. You're just explaining that you're in the room or you created the room. But you had 11 people there that have got 11 really interesting stories, and you've already taught me something on this walk that I didn't know and that I'm going to benefit from. What were the other 11 stories that got you to that meeting yesterday, or that you had over a beer at lunch? Because they're the stories you should be telling, because you're struggling for content, so you put up a photo and tag everyone, but you've actually got 2 weeks or 2 months worth of content from the 11 people you were speaking to. And he's, oh my God, I'm just looking at I'm playing the whole game wrong. I'm like, okay, it's as simple as an easy tweak, because You can capture all of that. It's about storytelling, isn't it? And you find all that gold. And the best thing that I did last year at the start of the year, I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I need to challenge myself to be a better writer. I am going to challenge myself to write every day on LinkedIn. And to do that,
Mm.
I'm going to have to come up with something smart to talk about. Otherwise, it's going to be really boring for me and really boring for the audience. So what I started to do is instead of talking in all the sales meetings when I was coaching my 6 negotiators at Hello Haus, I would ask them questions and tell me about, okay, Stuart, why did you lose that deal? What did you say to them? What did they say to you? What did the client do when you said that? How did you win that deal? What happened? Pull it apart. And they would talk about it, and then it became like a counseling session. So I'd be
Yeah.
pulling it apart and say, okay, great. Okay. Then in that instance, I may have said this, and this was the result I would get or I'd expect if I did that. When I did that, I would then go away. Normally, my team used to laugh because I'd sit there and I'd write 2 pages of notes on these 1 hour
Mm.
sales calls once a week or twice a week. And they were all my content ideas. And I'd go away, I'd just pick up little things that you said, just a tiny thing you said, I'd write it down while you're still talking. And then I'd go away and I'd sit by myself and I'd go, okay, Marsha said this, and then the agent did that. Why? And then I'd like, okay, if I was the agent, I would have known that Marsha was going to say that. So I would
Mm.
have said this because that's the highest percentage chance that I'd get Marsha to do what I wanted to do. Right. Or I'd break it all down like that. And then all my content just started flowing. And then I was writing every day, and my staff were saying, this is unbelievable. Now we've got like this, what you couldn't convey this stuff face to face. I struggled to coach like this. But then when I went and broke it down and I wrote about it, the staff were like, oh my God,
Mm.
I totally get it. I should have said that in that example. Or that makes perfect sense why I did that and why it worked. And then all of a sudden their game lifted. And it was like, okay,
Incredible.
I've got to do this better. And that's really helped me tons to break it apart, the psychology of it.
I was about to recommend a tool that I use. So I do the same kind of content like this, but then I dictate it into an app, and then it uses prompts to put it into a version which I can rewrite. But I just keep doing what you're doing because it's really working for you. Don't
Yeah.
mess around with it.
And I just wake up with those ideas. Like at 4 o'clock this morning, I woke up and I sent myself an email and it was 2 lines. One of them was, if you were me, what would you pay for this house? And I was like, that's a question that I ask real estate agents. And everyone would go, why would you ask that?
Wow,
I tell you a
that's a
high
good
price. I'm like,
question.
because I turn it around on them and I say, okay, Stuart, this looks like a really good house. I'd love to buy it for the client, but put yourself in my shoes. What should I pay for this house?
Yeah. Yes.
So often we think they're going to anchor us to a high price and they tell us a number way below where we were
Yeah.
thinking where the comparable sales is because they know their client's motivated or whatever else like that. Not all the time, but very often. And it's saved my clients hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's like, okay, I need to write about that because these are the little things that I do every day that I just never think of. It's like,
Not
there's
to
my
mention the
bottom
fact
line. Yeah.
they're not expecting that question. That is not,
Right.
that's, it's a, I don't know whether you play chess, but if you haven't, you probably should because you'd be really good at it. But it's like they're not expecting that. And therefore, when you get an answer, they ask a question like that, the answer is probably going to be relatively raw and honest.
Yeah, and it's all those types of conversations. Like, there's 2 really good questions that I ask that I train all my team to. The first one is when I ring you up on the first call, I'm going to say to you, what buys it? And then I'm not going to talk. And you're going to tell me this long-winded bullshit story, and I know you're lying, or you're going to tell me exactly the number or very close to what I need to do. But that one question does an immense amount of time saving and
Mm.
heavy lifting for me. What buys it? And then I shut up. Yeah. And there's other
What
questions
buys it?
like that. And what most buyers do in Sydney, for example, and it's different in every state, but in New South Wales, people will go when I was an agent and they would come to the door and say, how many contracts have you got out? And the
Yeah.
joke in the real estate industry is that the answer is always 3 or 4 because it's not too many that it scares you off, but it's enough to create competition against you. So if
Yeah.
you ask a question like
Absolutely.
that, you're asking to be set up against you. So rather
Yeah.
than ask that question, I ask what buys it, or I say, Stuart, what's the highest offer you've rejected? And I don't say anything. And then you see they squirm or they tell you, and then you cut through this whole what's the guide price or the rest of it. It's
Mm.
questions like that. Where do I need to position my client to buy this? Like
I,
those types of things. And it's the questions that have really moved the needle for me in the last few years, thinking
I
about
love
that.
that what buys it because it almost communicates the opportunity to close it really quickly, which is what they
Yes.
want. Yeah.
Yep.
We could keep going. This is incredible.
Yeah, sorry,
But
I'm
are
going
you,
quite rather.
no, I'm mindful of your time, to be honest, more than anything else. Presumably you will one day write a book on negotiation. You've obviously thought about that and you're going to do it sooner rather than later, I'd imagine.
Maybe.
Want to ask a couple of questions and then I'll let you go about your day because I know you've got stuff to do. If you were recommending somebody who does not want to build a massive business, but they want to be able to build something that gives them enjoyment in what they're doing. They want to be able to do the right thing, have a business model that enables them to do the right thing by people, and they want to make enough money so they don't have to be restricted. They don't have to look at the bank account and wonder where the money. What are 5 bits of advice you would tell them to focus on as they start out, as they grow the business? Things that you would suggest doing versus not doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you need to craft a high level of skill in one genre. So I think that's really important that you're a great hairdresser or you're a great accountant or whatever it might be in small business. For me, that was negotiation, or it might be a high level of communication, but that's probably another one. So you obviously fine tune your craft. I think the second one for me would be real high level communicator. That served me very well in every facet of life. I think
Say
if
high
you
level, you mean being able to articulate complex things that are, in a way that makes sense?
I would even dumb it down and just say someone that can be really clear in terms of the messaging that they what they do and how they do it and what the value
Hmm.
proposition is. And great in terms of following up and really clearly getting people to action and take decisive action. So one of the things that I see a lot in terms of my job with real estate agents is they're great on the ego stuff, like really pointing out all the positives and the rest of it. They're poor on delivery in terms of positioning the customer to take decisive action and following through and doing what they told them they were going to do. So if I say to you, Stuart, what buys it? And you say 960,000. Great, Stuart, I need to do a building and pest inspection. I need to get the contract reviewed and I'm going to come back to you by 4 o'clock this afternoon with an offer on contract. Are you okay with that? Yes. Okay, great. Then there's no gray area. I've set the ground
Yeah.
rules. I've been really clear on my communication and then I follow up and do it. So it's that type of really decisive language I think is good. So yeah, clear communication. And then I think what we just talked about, storytelling is everything. And it may just be in my type of service-based industry, but you do see it everywhere.
Mm.
E-commerce, everywhere. Storytelling it's compelling in terms of the impact that it'll have on your business. So you've got to be good at finding those stories and conveying that to your audience to build trust, I think, and show value.
The
Yeah.
other one that's jumping out of me, tell if it's wrong, and maybe you got another one I've taken from this is know your numbers and
Yep. Be clear in
know
your
how the business
numbers.
works.
And I think a lot of what we've just spoken about was self-doubt and positive mindset, isn't it? So overcoming that, be confident but not arrogant, and yeah, and
Stay humble. I love that as a t-shirt, a running t-shirt. Stay humble. I think
stay
it's
humble.
I like
Yeah,
stay humble personally.
yeah. There's five, six, seven, or 10.
Yeah, loads. We keep going. There's a book in this. Honestly, I could keep going on this, but one of the reasons I want to put in front because I actually think what you do, you've got the opportunity to add value for a bunch of people, but I also know a lot of the clients I work with who are advisors, brokers, most definitely. And I think accountants often have conversations with their clients about investment and buying offices and things like that. If somebody wanted to reach out and connect with you and potentially talk about how you could help them to help clients, what is that? Is that something conversation you'd like to have? And if so, what's the best way of doing it?
Yeah, always. It's all referral based, so a lot of it is B2B. LinkedIn is really easy to find me. Otherwise, they can go to the scottaggett.com website. That will stay
Yep.
live no matter what I do next in terms of the green shoot stuff that we've discussed.
Yep.
But LinkedIn's an easy one to get me. And I'm the easiest human to find in the world, like any agent or buyer's agent, because my mobile phone is everywhere online. They'll track me
You
down pretty
answer a
quick.
lot.
Yeah.
And from an engagement point of view, you'll jump on, you have a conversation, the referral comes through, there's a structure and a pricing to it, and you go from there.
Yeah. And I've found that I've actually never paid for a B2B referral in my life. I offer to pay a commission to grease that wheel and to make it worthwhile for the referrer, but no one ever wants it, which is quite admirable. Certainly the type of people that I attract don't want it. So that's top tier mortgage brokers and things. They want their customer to get the best outcome
Mm,
and they're not
I
interested in
find that.
taking any monetary return. So I send as many customers as I can back to people that refer me business. By the nature of what I do, though, most of the customers either come to me through a broker already or they've already got a conditional approval in place. So I don't get huge amounts of return referrals. I spend a lot of my time working with great people that are got customers that are in that sweet spot for me.
And just to hit it back one more time, I think you mentioned, and make sure I got this right, the average person you work with will basically, once they've identified the property, they can close the deal in 3 weeks, and the industry average is, did you say 10 months?
10.1 months is the average time it takes for an Australian to buy a property, and my customers after the strategy session are typically transacting in 1 to 3 weeks. But that's not a badge of honor for me, and it's not something that I would actively market as the reason why you should work with me. What it does say, though, is it gives you complete confidence that we know what we're doing and that we can get our customer to the finish line in a quick time frame because they've got the absolute confidence to act. So I think that's a real positive. But I don't want it to be seen as we're rushing customers through the door to get them out. It's just that we have them so dialed in that they're in a very confident decision-making mode, probably faster than most businesses. And because I only work with a select amount of people, we're not oversubscribed. We're not trying to do 50 or 100 of these a month. So we can give people the time, we can focus on their bespoke needs, and we can find those assets quickly. And we've got great tools to do that as well.
Yeah, I wasn't even suggesting for a second it's about rushing through it. But the thing is, the reason why people stall is because they're just not sure, they're not comfortable, procrastination kicks in, all the rest of it. And then, it's not necessarily that they rush to do it in 1-3 weeks. It's just they're much more confident making the decisions more quickly. And that's what makes it easy. Mate, this has been absolutely, I could keep going. I've learned so much from this, both in terms of where you started. I think the negotiation, seriously, you could spend, I know you've coached other people on negotiation, so I know you know this stuff really well, but there's a lot I didn't know about the journey you've been on. There's a lot I did. And I don't know how often you've told this story, but it's really good to hear it. Mate,
No,
any
it's
final
good.
thoughts? Anything else
Thank
you want
you.
to put out?
No, that was good. It's good for me to work through all those things and look back at those learnings as well, because it's ever evolving, isn't it? And it's never a linear kind of process. There's just so many chops and changes, lots of ups and downs, but you've got to go through all of that to get to where you are today. It makes you bigger and stronger. So it's good to look back and go through those things as well. Thank you.
My dad said, if everything turns out all right in the end, so if it's not all right, it's not the end.
Yeah, if Arsenal win a trophy this season, that'll turn out better for me. But
I think it's not over. It's not going to happen this year. But at least you're in the Champions League. That's the main thing. Mate, what have you got on for the rest of the day? Anything good?
hopefully buying a few houses for clients. Yeah, I'll be pretty busy doing that. Oh, actually, I have my 6-year-old playing Auskick his second game, so I'm arguably more excited every week than he is. I told him that my favorite noise is the click clack of football boots on concrete. For me, that's like game time, baby. We're on.
Yeah.
We're on. We're running out of the sheds with my mates and we're about to play footy. And it was like my absolute ride or die moment. I love it. So yeah, he knows that now. And I've taught him my one rule of life on the football field is that they can't run without a head. So he's pumped. Just attack
that sound of the click clack and the smell of Danker rub. That gets me every single time.
Their blood.
Yeah, that too. Mate, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time. I'll catch up with you soon. Bye. Well, what an episode. Today we unpack Scott Aggett's really insightful, remarkable journey from his early days in real estate to founding multiple successful agencies, how he pivoted to a new lifestyle and ultimately took his version of redefining the property negotiation game with Hello Haus and now Green Shoots Property as well. Scott shared a lot in there. He shared the nitty-gritty of negotiating with agents in a way that makes it just seem so simple. He shared a little bit about how to build really powerful networks. He talked a lot about the highs and also the lows of business exits and a lot of those lessons learned along the way, which he just has absorbed and moved on from in a way that shows resilience that I sometimes wish I was born with. If you're curious about Scott's new venture or you want support for you and your clients in getting the best possible deal in the property market, be sure to find him at scottaggett.com. That is 2 T's, 2 G's and 2 T's, or on LinkedIn. He's always keen to connect and will respond very quickly indeed, unless he's spending time with the family. If you enjoyed this conversation, please consider subscribing or leaving us a review. It really helps us to reach more listeners and bring even more inspiring stories and actionable strategies to your ears. And if you'd like to get access to the full catalog of masterclass episodes with the video, plus a treasure trove of resources to help you grow, scale, and systemize your practices, do come and join us at the Audere Practice Success Community and Hub at success.audere.com.au. That's AUDERE. Thanks again for being a listener, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Finnovator.